This presentation is about the imparfait, which is a past tense in French. We already know the passé composé, but the passé composé and the imparfait are a little bit different. The passé composé is a very simple past tense, although it does require knowing whether it takes avoir or être. It also requires some agreement of the past participle with either the subject or the preceding reflexive pronoun. The imparfait is a little bit simpler in form. However, it is maybe a little more difficult to distinguish when to use the imparfait. So let's get started. The imparfait is a past tense, and you already know the passé composé, so here's another one. The difference is that the passé composé indicates a simple, completed past action, and really we're very clear on when it happened, how long it was maybe, when it started, when it ended, and it's not very complicated. The imparfait indicates past actions that were habitual or repeated. In other words, if you used to do something all the time or regularly, then it's habitual. If you did something and then you did it again and again and again, then that's repeated, and that both of those situations will require the imparfait. If it was ongoing, for example, I was working in the garden, or we were taking a vacation, something that was ongoing, not really clear beginning or end. Again, that's one of the indications of the imparfait. A very common use of the imparfait is how things were or used to be, and in this chapter that we're going to use, we'll see that when we describe things that we did when we were children, when we were young, we're going to use the imparfait, unless it's a very clear incident, something that happened while we were young, something that happened during a certain time, and then we'll learn the difference between the two. So the formation of the imparfait is actually pretty simple. For regular verbs, and we'll do irregular verbs in another presentation, but for the regular verbs, we drop the ER of the infinitive for the first conjugation or the ER verbs. For the IR verbs, we're going to go to that part of the present tense, and you'll remember where we had the plural forms had the ISS in it. So the FINISS, and if you remember, nous finissons, vous finissez, ils finissent, and so forth, that had that ISS in the ending. And so we're going to use that as part of the stem for the imparfait. So really our stem for the IR verbs comes from the nous finissons, vous finissez, ils finissent. It comes from the present tense plural forms FINISS. The RE verbs are just like the ER verbs, very simple. We just take off the RE ending of the infinitive, and we have the endings of the imparfait added to that. So, to review, the stem for the ER verbs in the imparfait are just going to be the stem without the ER. We've cut that off. For the RE verbs, again, it's the same thing. We just take off the RE, and then we've got the stem for our imparfait. The stem for the IR verbs is a little bit different. That comes from the first person plural or second third of the present tense, where we had the ISS forms. All right, so those are our stems. Our endings are the same for all three conjugations: AIS, AIS, AIT, IONS, IEZ, and AIENT. So we wind up, again, those endings are the same: AIS, AIS, AIT. Those are the stems, those are the endings all the way through for all of the conjugations. So whether it's ER, IR, or RE verb, you're going to have the endings AIS, AIS, AIT, IONS, IEZ, AIENT. So we have je parlais, tu parlais, il parlait, nous parlions, vous parliez, et il parlait. Je finissais, tu finissais, il finissait, nous finissions, vous finissiez, il finissait. Je vendais, tu vendais, il vendait, nous vendions, vous vendiez, il vendait. Translation for the imparfait would be I used to speak, I was speaking, I used to finish, I was finishing, and so forth. Now you can also say I spoke, or I finished, or I sold, if you mean by that I spoke every day, or I spoke French when I was young, or I finished my homework every day, or not so much sold, but another example, they returned, for example, that's a rendre, they returned their books to the library every time they read the book. So it would be something that you can say, I spoke, I finished, I sold, or I returned, or something like that. If you mean by that, you did that on a repeated basis. So let's try some sentences to see how we do. Alright, so I used to play with my sisters when I was young. Je jouais avec mes sœurs quand j'étais jeune. Alright, and you could even say I played with my sisters when I was young. That indicates when I was young, I used to play, I would play. It was a repeated or habitual past action. So I used to play could also simply be I played with my sisters when I was young, because it indicates that this period of time that I was young, I did this, and they're pretty much at the same time. So if they're at the same time, and this is when I was young over a period of time, then that would be the imparfait. She always finished her work before going out. Elle finissait toujours son travail avant de sortir. And here again, always, and a verb in the past, finished. If all you had was she finished, could be the passé composé, she finished, period, that's the end of the sentence. But if it says something like she always, she used to, she would frequently, then it would be the imparfait. So the imparfait does indicate something that was going on repeatedly, habitually, always, so forth. That's pretty much a clue. Where were you eating when you called? Où est-ce que tu mangeais quand tu as téléphoné? Now here's a sentence that has both the imparfait and the passé composé. The difference being this. When you called is a simple past action. That can only be the passé composé. You called. It's a simple past action. When you have a simple past action, for example, you called, and it takes place while something else was going on, where were you eating, then one will be in the imparfait, one will be in the passé composé, because these two actions do not take place at the same time. They're both in the past, but only one is a simple past action. Where were you eating? We're not sure what time that started, when that's going to end, but we do know that you were eating when this action interrupted this action. So when one action interrupts another, the one that interrupts is in the passé composé, and the one that was ongoing is going to be in the imparfait. Où est-ce que tu mangeais quand tu as téléphoné? Where were you eating when you called? Here's just a little note that we need to know. Manger, if I drop the ER of the infinitive, I have M-A-N-G. When I have a G before the A, I have to add an E, and that's only for sound, so that we don't wind up with manger. We have où est-ce que tu mangeais. We want to keep that same je sound of the infinitive, so we have to add an E. So that's how we soften the sound, by adding an E. So just remember, if the verb has a G, before I add the AIS, I have to add the E. So it becomes où est-ce que tu mangeais. He and his family always traveled to France in the summers. Lui et sa famille voyageaient toujours en France pendant les étés. All right, there again you have a clue. Always is going to tell you something that was going on in the past. It is past, but it was repeated or habitual, and so we're going to use the imparfait. And here again I have a verb with a G and then AI, so AIT. So before that G goes to the A, I've got to add the E to soften the G. So it's voyager instead of voyager. We sang in church when we were children. Now here you simply have we sang, but because it says when we were children, we know that sang is not the passé composé. It's going to be the imparfait, because when we were children took a period of time, took over years, and it says we sang in church when we were children. We're assuming that the whole time that we were children, we were singing in church. Maybe not every day, but it indicates something, an ongoing action, while this part of the sentence, we were children, indicates that indicates a period of time. So we have nous chantions à l'église quand nous étions enfants. Nous chantions is imparfait, nous étions enfants, also imparfait. They're both past actions. Being children took period of time, and singing in the church took place during that time when we were children. So again, go over this little video. If you have any questions, just let me know, email me, or see me in class.